and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Lily and I am a Chinese transracial adoptee. I post videos about my experiences as an adoptee, as a woman of color raised by a white family. And then I've also been vlogging just to show my daily life and how adoption may or may not play into my everyday life and to provide distraction during quarantine. So if you are interested in that type of video, there's a subscribe button somewhere around here, and then at the end of the video there will be another subscribe button and some video recommendations specifically for you. So stick around for that if you are interested. Today I'm going to be talking about a part 2 to my college episode. A lot of people seemed more interested in more of my experience and how I navigated college as a transracial adoptee. And so the biggest part about college for me, I mean, aside from like taking class and stuff, was the fact that I was away from my family for really like the first time. And I was living my life. I only saw my parents and went home twice a year, and they would come to visit me twice a year. But the rest of that time I was out in the world as an Asian woman. And when people saw me, and they've always seen me as an Asian person first, but usually I would be with my adoptive family who's white, and so their whiteness kind of like caped me. But yeah, then I went to college far from home, and I was, I guess, more aware of the discrimination and the racism that I was experiencing. Really, it was at orientation when they were doing one of those icebreaker games, which I hate, but you know, you're at orientation, so you have to do it. They titled it Inner Outer Circle, but I think it has many names. But basically you all stand in one circle and then they read off something. And if that applies to you, you step into the circle so you can see who else you relate to. And so it starts off like, oh, if your favorite color is a primary color, step in. Or like, oh, if you are this age, step in. And then it got to the point they asked, like, if you identify as a person of color, or maybe it was just, are you a person of color, step into the circle. And so we had some people step in definitively, and then there were 2 Asians who stepped in definitively, and then there was me and this other girl, and we were like, do we count? I don't know. And that's something I hadn't really considered until that point, which is, when you look back on it, crazy to think about, because I've always been a woman of color. But because I was away from my adoptive family and someone directly asked me, are you a person of color, I didn't know what to answer. And because race wasn't really talked about in my family in depth, like I knew I was Chinese, I knew I was Asian, but it wasn't like, you're a person of color, you're going to experience racism. When I got to college, I really had no clue what that meant. And so that was a really defining moment for me. And then the months leading up to college, I really thought about that idea, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to walk into school and begin my life and start living as a person of color. Once I got to college, it was very interesting because obviously I wanted to connect with other Asian students, but it was really, really hard. Even now, I relate even more to American-born Asians because we have that level of removal from our culture and we're more Americanized. I tried befriending international students from Asia, and it was just really hard. Like, we were so different, and many of them really didn't consider me Asian at all. And then the added layer that I didn't grow up in an Asian family just like basically made me white to them. One of my best friends is American-born Taiwanese, and we really bonded. We would basically spend every single day together because that's who I was most comfortable with. And we would, you know, look back on things that happened during the day, and it wasn't like we were having these really in-depth discussions about race and discrimination, but it was just nice to be able to sit on the couch with someone and say like, yeah, did you notice how like the restaurant we were at wouldn't seat us by a window because they wanted white people sitting there? And like, that happens so often. And you know, he would tell me about things that happened to him, I would tell him about things that happened to me, and it was just nice having someone who could see like the fake woke people So yeah, college was definitely a time for me to really think about my life. And then I was working in 2 labs. One, the majority of the people there were Asian. In the second lab, my direct advisor was Asian, and so it was really nice having that representation in my life. I didn't feel othered, I didn't feel different, and having those influences just really let me understand what it's like to live in the world and just be myself. And again, in those situations, we didn't talk about race or anything. It was just like, I can be a Chinese transracial adoptee and I don't have to answer all of these intrusive questions. I don't have to keep reminding non-Asian people to don't make that joke, and that's pretty offensive, you shouldn't say that, and I know you didn't mean it, but it hurt me. It was just like, hey, we're living our lives and it's fine. College was definitely eye-opening, and looking back, I wish I had taken more advantage of the opportunities offered relating to my culture. So I didn't study abroad because I was there for science, and Boston is just like the science hub. And so I was like, why would I go anywhere else if I'm here in Boston where all the labs are? Like, of course I'm going to stay here. But, you know, I didn't study Chinese in college. I was actually an Italian minor. So all throughout high school, I took Latin, and then I got to college and I was like, Italian seems like the next step. And, you know, I love it. I love learning languages, and I love that opportunity, but I think it would have been, I don't know, it would make sense for me to use college where there are a lot of opportunities for me to actually take one. I think maybe I just wasn't at that point in my life where I wanted to really delve in that deep, because I guess the shock of trying to live as an Asian woman and realizing that I'm not going to fit in with every Asian group, it was just quite jarring. And so I needed to figure that out before I went deeper. So now I'm like cool being an Asian woman. I'm cool being a transracial adoptee and not always knowing everything about myself. And, you know, this isn't to say that I'm happy about everything and everything's great, but I'm willing to accept the complexities and the realities and the fact that there are bad days also and things can get tough. And so now that I can accept that, I was able to move on and start exploring language and exploring more about the one-child policy and just exploring myself in general. So, I mean, college is an eye-opening experience for everyone. Even if you're a commuter student and you live at home and you're going to college, like, it's going to be eye-opening because the classes are like nothing you've taken before, and you're suddenly surrounded by a bunch of people. And even if you are living at home and you're traveling to school, like, you have a lot more independence. It was hard at first, but once I found my core group, and then I also recognized which Asian groups were more accepting of my story and who I was, it was okay. And yeah, sometimes it's frustrating that there are going to be Asians and Chinese people who consider me white, and that's just how life is. And the thing is, like, I can't please everyone. I can't get everyone to like me. That's completely unrealistic in any situation for anybody. And so I'm just going to really value the friendships and the connections that I do have, and I'm going to really like make an effort to maintain those connections because they were supporting me and they were helping me figure myself out also. So for the adoptees who are going to college, maybe you're about to enter college in the fall, hopefully on campus, who knows with the current environment, but it's gonna be a shock. It's gonna be hard. My first year, it was truly the worst year of my life for many reasons, but I got through it. Even though it was a bad year for me, I'm thankful for it. It was tough, and it was a big wake-up call to me that, like, I need to get my butt in gear and really make something of my life, because you have to be willing to go after what you want. So it's gonna be a big change, but you have to find support to get through it. You can't do it by yourself. No one can do hard things by themselves, really. You always need support. You need someone behind you saying, like, you can do it, keep going. It's hard for me too, but together we'll get through it. And that's really what was changing for me, was when I started opening up and saying, hey, you know, I'm really struggling. I didn't have to study like this in high school. I don't know what I'm doing here. And then I found study groups, and people helped me learn how to study, because high school came really easily to me. I started opening up about the discrimination I was facing, and then my friends of color were like, hey, you know, we experienced this too. And then they were able to sort of teach me what to do because their parents had taught them, because they weren't transracial adoptees. So yeah, biggest thing, find your support. If you aren't doing as well in class, it's okay. Find your support. You have to have it. And going through the self-realization that you're a person of color and you are going to experience racism and discrimination, and this might be the first time that you're actually naming it and facing it head on, know that there are many people of color behind you, including me. I'm here to support you. And if you never got the lessons on how to handle it, find someone who can teach you. You can ask me, you can ask another adoptee friend, you can ask non-adoptee friends who are people of color, but you have to have some sort of support system that will help you navigate the world as a person of color and make sure that you stay safe and make sure you know how to keep yourself safe. So that was part 2 to the video. Part 3, I'm gonna go again more in depth, maybe talk about my transition to graduate school, maybe talk about living in a new city with new dynamics that you have to navigate. But yeah, this one was just more of a general overview of realizing that I'm a person of color and having that happen in college, which I think is pretty common for many transracial adoptees and maybe just people of color in general, because you are away from your family and you're suddenly experiencing things very, very directly, and you don't have someone there to protect you. You have to protect yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Again, there's a subscribe button somewhere around here, and then the end screen will have some recommended videos for you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps. I put a lot of effort into my videos now, and I just want to know that people are appreciating them or like getting something out of them. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.